they have been lying to us about our history. And I want to give you an example today. A special example, at least it's special to me. Let's think about ancient languages. Ancient Greek, ancient Hebrew, and so on. We do have complete dictionaries of those languages. We basically know everything or almost everything about those languages, even if those languages are not alive today. But if we read the books that were originally written in those languages, those people, ancient people, didn't know much about their past. Even Aristotle, when he talked about ancient philosophers, he couldn't mention anybody living something like 2,000 years before himself. So basically, we know languages, not a bunch of words, but languages that were spoken something like 3, 4, maybe even 5,000 years ago. But those people didn't know sometimes anything at all about what was before them. So the main fact here is that there is a big possibility, which I do personally believe, that there was nobody before them, or at least nobody that lived many, many years before them. As Darwin himself didn't believe in his theory, in the theory of evolution, in Darwinian evolution. Antony Flew, one of the best philosophers, pointed that out in a book about Darwinian evolution. And nowadays we do believe in Darwinian evolution as if it were a truism or a brute fact. It is not a truism, it is not a brute fact. It is a simple supposition. So apparently most of the world created books, writing systems simultaneously or almost simultaneously. But nobody knew anything about their past. So we still have manuscripts written something like 3,000-4,000 years ago, but those manuscripts didn't say anything about their past. So we can go back 3,000-4,000 years, but those manuscripts couldn't go back much. So it seems like people popped out of nowhere, intelligent and able to read and write. And you're probably thinking about skulls, skeletons, and other things about ancient people. And I tried to look for proof about those things. What I found, for instance, in one site is that they found, this is simply an example, they found a tooth, and from that tooth they claim the age of the tooth, and that the person who had that tooth was able to communicate. They know his work, what he used to do, and so on. I want to be clear here. If I gave you one of my teeth today with our technology, I'm not talking about like 50 years ago when this discovery was made. I'm talking about right now, today. If I gave you one of my teeth, you won't understand my nationality, my language, and my job. I'm sure. But 50 years ago, more or less, they claimed that they were able to understand the language, the job, and other things about the person who had that ancient tooth. It honestly sounds ridiculous to me. Okay? And another interesting thing is there are tests, okay? Mineral tests. Their goal is to understand the age of objects, okay? And I do believe in those tests when they're testing objects that are not that ancient. But, well, they could lie about it, so there's no problem. They could easily lie, so, well, that's another point, trusting them or not. But when they claim that a certain object is something like 5, 8, 10, 20, 30, 40,000 years old, but they cannot know if the atmosphere, that object, or anything at all could have changed the amount of certain minerals. And so apparently that would change also the apparent age of the object. So the tests that they do are not accurate, because, okay, if you have like 10 objects from the same year, from the same era, in different part of the world, and you have other proof about them, they are more or less trustworthy. But if you take one single object and you say, okay, this object still have this amount of this mineral, so its age is, no. Something in the atmosphere, in the object, or anything at all, anything could have changed the amount of certain minerals. Probably they claim that this is impossible, okay? Maybe right now it is impossible, but maybe it was possible when it happened. So their tests are definitely not trustworthy. Obviously, sometimes they might work, but that doesn't mean that they are always accurate. Apparently, almost everybody, knew books and scripture at the same time. That's weird. If you look at ancient people from Africa, United States, Mexico, Europe, Asia, scripture started almost at the same time everywhere. It doesn't make any sense at all. It seems like people became intelligent all of a sudden everywhere at the same time. But all of them have one single feature in common. And none of them knew anything about their past, their ancient past. None of them. All of them have had actually the same feature in common. And that's a fact. That's a brute fact. That's a truism. So this is why I do believe that the general idea of creationism in the Bible is correct. I'm not saying that I do believe that the Bible is perfect, it's always accurate. No way, it was written by man. So it was written by man, probably. I do believe that God talked a bit, but maybe sometimes they didn't understand God, sometimes they forgot, sometimes scribes couldn't copy manuscripts in the right way. So we're a man, we always make mistakes somehow. Somewhat. And that's it. Bye.